Hey everybody, welcome to Adventures Online. I'm so excited to talk to you tonight about another one of our key principles here at Welling Church that we teach in our family ministries. Over the past couple weeks, and for the next several more to come, we have been looking at 7 key principles that we teach our secondary age students here at church. And I find that these 7 principles are so vital to establish in our life, and the earlier we can establish them, the better. And that's why we hope that every secondary age student would embrace these before they finish secondary school. So far, we looked at things like authentic faith, spiritual disciplines, moral boundaries, and tonight I want to look at another key principle, which is meaningful friendships. It is so important that we learn in our life as early as possible how to build healthy friendships and avoid unhealthy ones. And the reason for this comes down to the discipline that we learn under this principle. And it says this: our friends determine the direction and quality of our lives. What that means is simply this: the people we choose to hang out with, they will determine where we go in our life and how far we're going to get. If you want to live a life that has a nice quality, where you get paid a nice wage one day working for a nice job, then you probably need to surround yourself with people who aspire to that same thing. Because the Bible makes it very clear that the people we surround ourselves with will determine where we end up one day. And if we hang out with people who don't aspire to do anything, then we're probably going to aspire to not do much. If we hang out with people who want to excel at school and do well in grades, it'll make it 1,000 times easier for us to adopt that same thing. Our friends are some of the most impactful and vital influencers in our life. When we begin to study about who has the greatest influence on our life in our teenage years, friends are number 1. They're bigger than social media, they're bigger than what's on TV and movies, they're bigger than what teachers say, and they're even bigger than what our parents have to say. Who we choose to surround ourselves with is so vitally important, and that's why we really need to make sure that we are learning how to build healthy friendships, and most importantly, how to avoid unhealthy ones, if we are going to allow the people who have the greatest influence on us to determine the direction and quality of our life. Our key passage for this principle is Proverbs 13, verse 20. It says this: whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. This is such a great verse, and it may be really short, but there is so much truth and wisdom found in it. Whoever walks with the wise will become wise. There is a great promise in that. If we spend the majority of our time with wise people, we will become wise. In other words, the wise, it will rub off on us. Hanging out with people who are wise, we just tend to become more like them. The wisdom is going to rub off on us. Now you may say, well, what is a wise person? Well, I like to define it like this. A wise person is the one who knows the difference between right and wrong and chooses to do what is right, even when it's hard. Wise teenagers can be very hard to find. And for most of us, when we're trying to apply this principle of meaningful friendships, it can be very difficult, especially at school, to find other teenagers who are making wise choices, that we can say, I'm going to befriend them and I'm going to allow them to have influence on my life. That is the kind of person that I want to help determine the direction and quality of my life. But we need to remind ourselves that good friends are wise friends. Good friends will know the difference between right and wrong. Good friends will make good decisions. It will always be easier for us to do the right thing when we are with the right people making good choices. But in Proverbs 13:20, there's also a warning. a warning that most of us will be very quick to identify. It says, the companion of fools will suffer harm. In other words, if we spend the majority of our time with fools, we will suffer painful consequences. A fool is someone who knows the difference between right and wrong and chooses to do what is wrong. Fools just don't care about what is right. They aren't ignorant. They just aren't interested. Pointing out the consequences of an action doesn't stop a fool. He just does what he wants when he wants to do it. A fool feels invincible. And the bigger thing in all of this, unlike when we hang out with wise people, we become wise. When we hang out with a fool, the Bible says we don't become a fool. Instead, something far worse happens. We will suffer harm. Something bad will eventually happen to us. You could be a wise person who, when presented with right and wrong, chooses to do what's right every time. But if you surround yourself with friends who are fools, friends who choose to do what is wrong, even when they know what's right, the Bible says you won't become like them. Instead, something bad will happen to you. You will suffer consequences from being around a fool. Many of us don't have to think very long and hard to think to a time where friends got us in trouble when we did nothing wrong. But the fact that we were there with them meant we suffered the consequences for their mistake. And that's exactly what the Bible is trying to teach us and trying to help us avoid in Proverbs 13:20. We need to be with wise people and avoiding fools. Another great verse that we see talking about this idea of meaningful friendships is also found in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 12:26. The one who is righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Ultimately, see that when it comes to finding a true friend, we need to surround ourselves with someone who is righteous, who's making good choices. Why? Because they will be a guide to us in the thing that is right. If we surround ourselves with friends that are wicked, making bad choices, it's going to lead us astray. It's going to take us on a path we don't want to go. But for most of us, it's like, yeah, we get that. We want friends that make good choices. But it seems so hard to find that. How do we find true friends? And it seems even harder to walk away from our friends. And a lot of that has to come down to acceptance and rejection. We will do so many things that we say we would never do to achieve acceptance and avoid rejection. I can't tell you how many times in school I gave in to peer pressure and made fun of someone where I never wanted to make fun of them. I didn't want to call them names that I didn't even know what the names meant. But I knew that if I didn't, everyone would make fun of me as well. And I would rather be accepted by all of the people in my class than rejected by them. So I gave in and chose to do what was wrong. And I regret that. And I'm sure you probably have an example of that in your life as well, where you chose to give in and do something that you would have never done before. But for the sake of being accepted and avoiding rejection, we would do that. But if you and I were to surround ourselves with true friends, we won't find ourselves in that situation very often. And we can avoid having to make those tough choices completely just by surrounding ourselves with the right people. True friends will love you and not just accept you. We shouldn't just be looking for a group that accepts us. We should be looking for a group that loves us. And more importantly than that, true friends are the ones who accept you just as you are, but love you too much to leave you that way. True friends will want to see you become more like Christ. True friends will want you to pursue the things that you care about the most. If your friends don't believe in God and you do, a true friend would encourage you to pursue your faith, even if they don't believe in it, because it means so much to you. And if they love you, they want to see you benefited. But the best true friends are the ones that have the same beliefs and direction in our life. And the reason is because our friends determine the direction and quality of our life. If we surround ourselves with friends that want to put God first and make going to church and serving in church a priority, then it'll be way easier for us to put God first and make serving in church a priority as well. For most of us though, when it comes to this discipline and this principle of meaningful friendships, it's not surrounding ourselves with true friends that's going to be difficult. The most difficult thing that you will have to do if you're going to apply this principle to your life is to walk away from relationships with people you really care about, because you have recognized that they are not the kind of friends that will get you to a place that's honoring God. Or maybe you recognize that your friends aren't wise, they're fools, but you really care about them. And the most difficult thing you will have to do is walk away. It will be difficult, but it is also necessary. Why? Because your friends determine the direction, quality of your life. Who you choose to surround yourself with will either rub wisdom off on you, or if they're a fool, you will suffer harm because of the choices they make. And no one wants that. This principle focuses not on what we do, but on who we are with. And you and I need to always be evaluating the people we have allowed into our life, because we need to remember our friends are the biggest people who influence us, and influence not only who we are, but what we do, where we go, and the type of life we will live. So I hope you will think long and hard about your friends and identify some key friends that you need to spend more time with. Thank you so much for joining us for Adventures Online. I look forward to having you back next week for another key principle. See you soon.